you for taking your seats. We are getting started in 30 seconds. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to need a whole lot more energy for this program tonight, for this nonpartisan forum. So we'll try again. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Oh, that's better. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are so excited to have you here for this nonpartisan civic forum, featuring the candidates for the office of PA State Senate 42. I'll get the numbers right. All right. Whether you're here in the building with us or if you're watching online, we believe that it is so important to be educated about your vote. And we know that voting matters in each and every election. It is not something that we skip. We don't skip any elections. Every election is important. And so now at this time, I'm going to call up the woman in charge, the board chair, Lorraine Cross, who is going to introduce our wonderful moderators. Thank you. Hello, everybody. It's so good to see you all here. As Lauren said, it's important that we all get out and vote each and every election. And this election is, of course, a major election that we have to make sure that we get 1, 2, 3, as many people out that we possibly can. I am honored to be able to introduce our moderators. And I'm going to start with Jalea Jefferson Bullock, a native of New Orleans, Louisiana, and is an associate professor at Wayne State University Law School, where she teaches constitutional law, criminal procedure, and race in American law. Professor Jefferson Bullock received her Bachelor of Arts degree in English and American Literature and Language from Harvard College. Her Master of Arts in Humanities from the University of Chicago. Her Juris Doctor from Harvard Law School. Currently, she is pursuing Master of Theological Studies at the Pittsburgh Theological Seminary. Prior to this appointment, Professor Jefferson Bullock taught criminal law, criminal procedure, race and American law in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Phoenix, Arizona, where she was an active member of the law school community. So, before embarking on her career in academic, Professor Jefferson Bullock enjoyed a robust career in law practice and public service. She was elected to Louisiana State House of Representatives in 2003, where she represented a district in her home city of New Orleans. Post-Katrina, she was an outspoken champion for the rights of the displaced, most notably their right to vote. Throughout her career, she has been appointed to numerous community boards and commissions and has received several awards and recognitions for the community service. Allow me to introduce to some and present to others, Jalea. Okay, and Josiah Gilliam is the Executive Director of PUMP. For the last decade, he served the Pittsburgh region through nonprofit and governmental community building work, a 40 under 40 honoree in 2017. Allow me to introduce to some and present to others, Josiah Gilliam.
Thank you, Ms. Gray.
You're welcome.
And thank you all for being here. It's nice to have a nice time in community, is it not? Yeah. Okay, we're going to quickly review the rules of engagement and expectations, and then we're going to get right to it to honor the candidates' time and everybody's time. Okay, these are the rules that the candidates have agreed to, and that we ask you of the audience before we welcome our candidates into the forum. In hopes to get through as many questions as possible during the time we have, we ask that the audience be silent throughout the forum and refrain from clapping or making verbal outbursts of any kind. If an audience member persists, the moderators may ask them to leave. We will proceed alphabetically for the initial ordering of questions. After that, the questions will be asked in a rotating manner so that candidates will take turns being the first to answer a question. Question with a response time will be 2 minutes, and we have a timekeeper. Is he right there? Okay, very good. So that's a rule that we have. Thank you to the league and to the volunteers for making it work. And time for any rebuttal or additional statements must be taken from the candidate's next response. There will be a 60-second closing statement, and we ask that the candidates not verbally attack or interrupt one another. We have no worries about that. And then one final note before we begin is that this forum is taking place before the voting registration deadline, which is on May 4th this year. Probably don't need to tell anyone in this room that, but it's May 4th, 2026. Please visit Allegheny County or votepa.gov to learn more. And if you are a City of Pittsburgh resident, please make sure that you vote and participate in the primary on or before May 19th, the primary date, using the ballot ways to submit your ballot. And I'll pass it over.
Good evening, everyone. This is a reminder that this Voting is Power collective is nonpartisan. It's comprised of over 35 nonpartisan 501c3 nonprofit organizations who do not support or oppose any candidate or any political party, but rather seek to inform and educate all citizens in government. So please be reminded of our nonpartisan stance, and I believe we're ready to get started. Okay, and so today we have two candidates for Pennsylvania Senate District 42, Senator Wayne Fontana and Mr. Paul Stankista. And we're ready to proceed with our questions, yes? Okay, let's begin with question number one. We begin alphabetically with Ms. Senator Fontana. The question is this: what do you see as the most pressing issues facing Pennsylvanians, and how would you address them?
We in the General Assembly right now, I think we have a lot of pressing issues when it comes to funding of different things as far as education, things like affordable housing, things like Medicaid, things that really matter to each individual taxpayer out there. So we fight for that. We push back on what's happening on the federal level right now, and a lot of that is trickling down to us in the state, and you know it's a battle to stand and fight against the Republicans there and what's coming down from the Trump administration. So we continue to do that. Those issues that matter. We have big issues right now about affordability, which is also, I guess, the newest thing this year with the war. Gas prices are going up as we speak. Utility prices are going up. Food prices are going up. I think to my constituents, I think that's probably the most pressing issue today. And so, you know, that's a battle. There's no question. And we and the Democratic caucus and myself are We have priorities that we're setting forth as to how to fight back and our voices to be heard for those types of things. So we'll keep doing that and moving forward to do the best we can. And you know, against a really high mountain with the Republicans in charge and Trump with the federal administration. So it's not like we're not doing it. We just had a caucus last week setting the Democratic priorities of how we're going to move forward. The affordability thing is top of the list.
Perfect. Thank you, Senator.
Same question for Mr. Stankista. What do you see as the most pressing issue facing Pennsylvanians, and how would you address them?
Absolutely, yeah. I agree actually that affordability is the number one facing our families. Working families are struggling to get by right now. Starting with affordable housing, over half of all Pittsburgh residents are burdened by unaffordable housing, meaning that they pay more than 30% of their income on housing. And it starts with the out-of-state corporate landlords that are monopolizing our housing in Pittsburgh and our surrounding communities. As of 2023, which is the most recent data I can find, 3 corporations own 12% of all homes in Pittsburgh, 13 in Millville, 15 in Stowe, 18 in Pease Rocks, and on and on and on. And these are slumlords, let's make no doubt about it. Okay, their properties are run down and decrepit, but they don't care because they keep bringing in money. So our state needs to take action against these corporate landlords and make sure that our communities are protected. For example, they partner with municipalities for stricter code enforcement to make sure that these slumlords are held to account. Affordability touches all sorts of areas. For example, public utilities. Our electric and water bills are skyrocketing, in large part due to data centers and the fact that our private utilities here in Pennsylvania are virtually allowed to raise their rates and pocket the money as pure profits. Our state needs to step in and stop the shameless profiteering by private utilities. And lastly, healthcare is also devastating our communities, and we need to take action on prescription drug costs, for example, by establishing a prescription drug affordability board. We also need to fight back against the consolidation and monopolization of our healthcare providers. A major reason that people are spending more than half, as I've been canvassing, several older people with fixed incomes have said that they're paying more than half of their monthly allowance on medication. And a big reason for that is that UPMC and AHN are single-handedly monopolizing the entire healthcare space. And Pennsylvania needs to seriously scrutinize future mergers to ensure that this consolidation does not sacrifice public welfare at the altar of corporate profit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Should have mentioned it at the beginning, but we received questions from the community for the forum, so we're going to go through those. I wanted to stay on this theme of availability and zoom into a question about paid leave. We'll start with you, Mr. Stankista, to begin with. Right now, Pennsylvania has no requirements or system for paid leave for Pennsylvanians. And for workers that need to take time away to welcome a new baby, care for a loved one, attend to their own medical needs, escape or recover from domestic violence, etc. Can you speak to your vision for how Pennsylvania can address the issue of paid leave, and what would you do to make that vision a reality?
Absolutely, yeah. I am fully in support of paid family leave in Pennsylvania. It's something that many of our neighbors have, states across the nation, and Pennsylvanians, once again, are struggling to get by because they have to take time. If you get sick and you fall behind on your bills, it's almost impossible to get back, right? If you have a baby, or if a family member gets sick, you need support from the state. And the House actually passed a bill recently that included paid family leave, and I support that piece of legislation. Without a majority in the state Senate, which we haven't held since 1993, it's going to be very hard to get that through. But we need to, yes, I absolutely support the paid family leave bill that just recently passed the House. I think if we're ever going to get this through, for example, if we're ever going to finally win back the state Senate, we really need to project a vision and establish a platform that resonates with voters. And I think this is exactly one of them. Everyone has a family member who's been sick. Everyone has been sick. You know, everyone has been a child or has had a child, right? And I think that's going to resonate with our voters. But you know, Republicans in the legislature have obviously stood against this. And I think a big reason for that is how are we going to pay for it is the question that they ask. But there are very concrete ways that we can pay for it. For example, through kind of the income tax that we can set aside from corporations. Yeah, we need to push forward in the legislature. This needs to be a priority because it matters to people. And I'm not sure that it's been a priority in the state Senate for our Democratic caucus so far. It certainly has in the House, and I would love to be a part of it in the Senate.
Thank you. Senator Fontana, what do you think about the idea of paid leave and what's your vision there?
Yeah, that's part of our priorities for 25-26 is paid leave. In the Senate, we've been behind paid leave for a few sessions, pushing it forward. There's no question that the Republican Party doesn't want to do it, but it's something that the government does. And, you know, these things sometimes are put into the budget, and then they get negotiated in and out depending on, you know, priorities at that point in time. But healthcare is a big deal. I think for the residents here throughout my district, we need to ensure access to quality, affordable healthcare, along with the other things that Medicaid is another thing that we need to protect, invest in attract hospital staff. We need to maintain coverage of essential health essentials that people need. But we want folks to be able to you know, go to work and have health care and child care for their children. It's something that's a priority in our caucus. We'll keep pushing forward as much as we can in this budget. We're very fortunate we have a governor that knows and cares about these types of things and puts it in there, and we go through the process, mostly through the month of June, the budget process to try to keep those things in there. But the process in Harrisburg, as has been mentioned, is that the majority controls. They control what the schedule is, what we vote on, not only on the floor of the Senate, but also in committee. Some of this stuff doesn't even get out of committee. The House version, I would vote for in a second if it got to the Senate and even in committee, and then onto the floor. It won't get there because they won't let it. And that's the sad reality. In fact, the funny part about that, when I first was elected, I wanted to change the system. I came from county council, I was 5 years, and we heard everything. We heard sorry, I have to stop. Okay, I'll catch on later. Thank you.
Thanks to the lead.
Okay, thank you. We know that redistricting is certainly a major issue in our country. The next question begins with Senator Fontana. The question is this: what is your view on the need for an independent redistricting commission for all Pennsylvania State House and Senate seats, and why?
Yeah, this is a bill that's been in the state Senate for a while. I think it's Senator Bussell, maybe. They had the last one, I'm a co-sponsor of it, to have an independent commission. It's what's fair. If you want to know why the Republicans control, it's gerrymandering. There's no question that's what it's about. My district, for example, is gerrymandered more for Democrats than Republicans. There's no question about that. It needs to be fair, and it's not fair. So, you know, I'm all about it being that way. We're trying to do it, but again, we go back to the process in Harrisburg, and the process won't let us to even put up a vote. So those things have been, you know, talked about, and we've had it in session for, I don't know, it's probably been 6 years since I look back to when this bill, an independent commission, has been proposed. So I'm all for it. I just want to be able to put a vote one of these days, and the only way that's going to happen is when we control the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. St. Keith's the same question. What is your view on the need for an independent redistricting commission for all Pennsylvania State House and Senate seats, and why?
Yeah, I absolutely support independent redistricting in Pennsylvania. In my view, gerrymandering is disenfranchisement, plain and simple. You are systematically trying to take away somebody's voice, whether it's Democrat, or Republican, or independent. So we need an independent way, and frankly, so I'm a mathematician, I'm a software engineer by trade, and there are plenty of mathematical ways to do it fairly, and to do it unbiased and independently. You know, gerrymandering is an issue. It has been historically in Pennsylvania. I'll push back on one thing that the senator just mentioned, which is that the reason we currently don't have the state Senate as Democrats is because of gerrymandering. I'll point out that the most recent redistricting commission had 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans. We actually held the majority in that commission. And in fact, it's the Republicans who claimed that the maps were gerrymandered against them. And yet we still have not won the state Senate in the last several elections. So gerrymandering might have been a good excuse in some previous decade, because they do it every 10 years, but it's no longer a very good excuse because Democrats are the ones who drew these maps. Yeah, we need to do it independently. Heck, let's talk about top 2 primaries. Let's talk about ranked choice voting. Let's talk about actually making a concrete step forward to making our democracy more democratic, instead of having 2 white-knuckled parties holding on to everything and not allowing people to actually have a true say in the democracy. Yeah, that's what I think.
Thank you very much. Keeping with this idea of affordability, I want to ask a question about the minimum wage. This is certainly something that's come up. Governor Shapiro has expressed his support for it. The Pennsylvania minimum wage has been stagnant for some time. There's been proposals, 12 and 15, stuff like that. What is your position on raising the minimum wage in Pennsylvania?
The minimum wage in Pennsylvania right now is a joke. It is a sick joke. $7.25 an hour. It wasn't good enough in 2009, and it's not good enough today. We desperately need to raise it. We need to raise it to $15, and we need to index it to inflation so that we get yearly raises. The legislative leaders, the governor, high-ranking officials in Pennsylvania get yearly raises every single year based on inflation, and working people deserve the exact same benefits. When I was in high school, I made $7.25 an hour. I made the minimum wage, and 15 years later, people are still making it, right? And it's something that Democrats have been talking about for the 17 years since we've had the $7.25 minimum wage, and it just simply never gets done. It never gets done. Partisan gridlock might be a good enough excuse for 1 year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, but after 17 years, that's not a good enough excuse anymore. We need to bring new energy. We need to get it. We need results. We don't need excuses. And frankly, if we need to put ourselves into a position to win the majority, like I said, and actually do things for the people of our district and working people, working families, then we need leaders who will push for that, who will, like I said, project the vision, establish a platform that will finally win back the state senate. Since 1993, I was born in '94. I have not taken a breath on this earth when we've been in a position to do things like raising the minimum wage. So I'm kind of sick of hearing about partisan gridlock. I'm sick of hearing excuses. $7.25 is a sick joke. And frankly, there is Republican support in Harrisburg for raising the minimum wage. Because guess what? They have to go back to their districts too, and they have to justify why somebody's making below poverty wages. And the state is allowing it to happen. In fact, there are plenty of bills that are introduced by Republicans. We need to have someone who will go over there, build an easy coalition, and get this done. It's a slam dunk.
I certainly support the raising the minimum wage. It's been something that's been talked about almost every single session day on the floor of the Senate by Senator Tagliani. She goes up and talks about it, and she actually has the number of days, how long it's been. So there are proposals every year for it. The governor has it in his budget because, as he figures it, if you raise the minimum wage, you actually save budget dollars because folks won't be as dependent on some of the other things they would need to do if they're only making $7.15 an hour. So we're all for it. It's been a proposal, as I mentioned, around a long time. In fact, a Republican had it at one time. I think it was running for governor, Scott Wagner, his name was. He put it up. I think he raised it to $8.25 or something like that. They still didn't run his bill. So you can say the gridlock that doesn't matter, or how the process doesn't matter, but it does. Unfortunately, it does. And that's what it comes down to. We get into voting and who you should vote for and control and all that sort of thing. But minimum wage is a shame that it is the way it is. We need to raise it. In fact, it's silly to me that it's even close to 7. It should be 10 and on up. They actually had a proposal to get it up in steps and get to 15 like in 3 years or 4 years, something like that. We'd vote for that. If that's the best we can do. We have to get, the majority of votes. And to the point, a lot of this stuff doesn't get raised, put on the floor, even though some Republicans may vote for it because they have to. That's why they don't run the bill at all. That's how they maneuver it, and that's their strategy.
Okay, let's pivot to talk for a moment about education. Here's the question, and you will begin, Senator Fontana. What changes, if any, would you support to making to Pennsylvania's educational funding laws?
Well, the education funding is inadequate. There's no question about it. We were trying to raise it. Governor Shapiro has raised it in the last couple of years, and trying to get it to the point where the courts have asked for it to be. So it's a battle. It's in the budget. So we do support it. There's no question. I'm on the Pennsylvania Higher Education Authority. I'm not on there because somebody told me to be on there. It's a volunteer thing. So education is important to me. It's important, the cost of it. Our costs are through the roofs for higher education. But just through K through 12 is crazy. It's just too much money that we have to spend, and we don't have enough. When I'm out and about, I go to places where there's art, and they can't do art anymore in the schools. So the teachers do it on their own. They get their own cards, and they do that because everything's starting to get cut. Things that shouldn't be cut, and things that every child should have the opportunity to know about, see about. They deserve a pathway to success in every way that we can provide it. So, yeah, we need to keep pounding away and trying to get more and more dollars for education.
Thank you, Mr. Zinn. Keeps the same question. What changes, if any, would you support making to Pennsylvania's educational funding laws?
For decades, our state leaders have refused to fund our public schools, shifting the entire financial burden onto local property taxes, which hurts not only homeowners but renters alike. It is the most regressive way possible to pay for public schools because it means that the trajectory of a child's life is completely dictated by their zip code and what its property values are. It got so bad that the poorest school districts in our state had to sue the state, and it was ruled to be unconstitutional the way that we currently do business, fund the public schools. And the court ordered our state legislature to fix it. Our state legislature has virtually refused to fix it. The marginal increase that we have seen since this lawsuit in spending does not nearly cover the unconstitutional funding gap that the court ordered the legislature to fix. And the reason is because they keep incrementally lowering the bill that they claim that they owe our students. For example, they intentionally undercount students living in poverty in order to save a few bucks. They maliciously tamper with the data that is used to determine the poverty levels of each school, knowingly switching from a reliable data source to an unreliable data source. That saves them a few dollars. So then now they can pat themselves on the back and say that our schools are funded, but they're not. Let's take, for example, Stowe Rocks, which is in the 42nd District. The court found that they have a $23 million adequacy cap, $1 million per year. So far, they've received less than $3 million per year. That leaves over $20 million that those children will quite literally never see. A child entering kindergarten when the fair funding lawsuit was first filed in 2014 is now finishing 11th grade. They're 1 year from graduating, and they've seen 2 nights of 1 year's worth of this money. It's a joke. It is an entire generation of children who have been abandoned. At the same time, our state leaders vote to give $700 million to corporate tax credits for private schools, a majority of which discriminate against disabled students and LGBTQ+ students. As a matter of policy, they do not admit disabled students, and they expel gay students. If I'm your state senator, I will fight to end the state-sponsored discrimination and put public dollars in public schools.
All right, a quick pivot to another topic here. This one about artificial intelligence and data centers, keeps coming up. There are a number of AI data centers proposed across southwestern Pennsylvania. Senator, sometimes there's been concern that developers are keeping plans quiet. We see local governments scrambling to create zone rules, PA lawmakers debating environmental and community impacts. There's certain rules for data centers, etc. What's your position on AI data centers in PA, and how should we think about it in terms of regulation at the state level? I'm sorry.
I believe I was thinking what, so.
Okay, yeah, sorry, Mr. Nico, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm actually a software engineer in my day job, and so I think I'm really uniquely positioned to protect our communities from these modern dangers of AI and data centers and all that. And make no mistake, data centers are already harming our communities. This year alone, Pennsylvanians are paying $2 billion with a B more on our electric bills because data centers aren't forced to pay their fair share. For example, Pennsylvania needs to do a lot more to ensure that our communities are protected from these data centers. For example, the infrastructure upgrades that are necessitated by these data centers. In the absence of specific cost allocation legislation, the cost of the upgrades that the data centers are requiring because of their outrageous demand for energy is spread across everybody's bills. You're paying for them, I'm paying for them. The data centers are not paying for them. Many other states have passed a law that says, if you're a customer that requires an upgrade, you pay for it. And if we pass a similar law, that would instantly save us $500 million every single year on our electric bills. We also need to equip municipalities to make the best decision for their communities and their localities. Right now, many municipalities are legally required by state law to simply accept when a data center arrives. They are not legally allowed to reject it, even if it's going to take all of their water, even if it's going to have a lot of noise pollution, air pollution, etc. Because of the current way that the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code is set up. That planning code has not been updated since 1988. It's another example of the outrageously antiquated laws that the decades of politics in Harrisburg has allowed to fester. We need to update this law for the 21st century and allow municipalities to make a decision whether a data center is correct for them. It's the only kind of NIMBYism that I believe in, data center NIMBYism. And our communities must be protected instead of giving hundreds of millions of taxpayer handouts to data centers. Last year's $115 million. By 2030, it will be $500 million every single year that both Democrats and Republicans vote to give data center companies.
Same question, right?
Thank you. I certainly believe that Pittsburgh and Western Pennsylvania can become an international hub for AI innovation, but leadership at all levels of government, private industry, community organizations, they must work to ensure that our community is not left buried in any environmental or industrial issues. The governor has put a proposal out for purposeful and thoughtful data center permitting and siting standards. However, I have to say I do not support state-level preemption of municipal planning efforts. Communities must be able to make those decisions themselves without political interference from Harrisburg. There is a bill, it's House Bill 1834. It passed the House with bipartisan support, and it's a good faith effort that should be considered by the Senate. The Senate actually has just introduced maybe a week ago a bill just similar to that. The bill is pretty general in that there's some negotiation that can go along with it. There's no question we have to make sure that they pay their fair share and what they're doing, whether it's water or electric or noise or whatever that might be causing issues in the community, that they take the brunt of that and not the folks around them. But you have to remember there's a lot of jobs associated with this, and it's big jobs, union producing jobs, and it'll make a difference.
Well, okay, so according to our rules, you've got, within your time, you may include a rebuttal in the time allowed to see the next question.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay, but you're not next. So the next question begins with Senator Fontana. So when you get your time in, you can include your rebuttal. Does that make sense to you?
Understood.
All right. The next question is this. We're going to pivot to talk about some of the most vulnerable of our citizens, those who are differently able. 2020 marked the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. However, many barriers still exist for people with disabilities. What will you do as a state legislator to improve accessibility for people with disabilities across the Commonwealth? Senator Fontana, you are first.
Thank you. This is a no-brainer. I mean, this is just something that we should be making sure we don't discriminate against folks with disabilities in any job. Everybody should have a fair opportunity to get a job. These laws, I think there are laws out there. Again, we have folks in our own Senate that are disabled. We have a lot of bills that try to promote the fact that there shouldn't be any discrimination against disabled folks, no matter what it is. So we in the caucus, our Democratic caucus, push forward on a lot of these. And some of these bills, quite frankly, are bipartisan. Some of them have been signed on by Republicans. I think there's a consensus that we don't want and we should not discriminate against disabilities. So we'll keep pushing forward that as a voice in It's heard all the time, we talk about it all the time, and we support it wholeheartedly.
Mr. Sankey, the same question. 2020 marks the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. However, many barriers still exist for people with disabilities. What will you do as a state legislator to improve accessibility for people with disabilities across the Commonwealth? Also, you may do your rebuttal during your allotted time.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, to close the loop on the data center issue, I think the reason that we need technical expertise in Harrisburg, right now there's no one in the state senate with any technical background at all, is so that tech firms can't lie to their faces, pull the wool over their eyes, and get hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer handouts. Like I said, $500 million per year in the next few years. And the reason for that is they promise hundreds of jobs for data centers, not only during construction, but after construction and during when it's just running as a data center. And the fact is, I can tell you, that's not true. There's not a single server room in the country that has hundreds of jobs. It just doesn't happen. They promise it, and it never comes, and our communities are left paying the bill for decades after that. Onto the anniversary of the ADA. I am, of course, absolutely in favor of expanding accessibility and protections against discriminating people with disabilities. I mentioned that right now the state government gives $700 million every year to private schools in the form of corporate tax rates, which, as a matter of policy, do not admit students who have a disability. That's a form of state-sponsored discrimination, and that's happening right now. It's voted on by Democrats, it's voted on by Republicans, and that needs to end. Forget about expanding. Of course we want to expand access and discrimination, but we need to stop the state sponsoring that discrimination first and foremost. We also need to stop discrimination in the healthcare sector. Like I said, the consolidation and monopolization of healthcare by a couple multi-billion-dollar nonprofits, which, by the way, make a hell of a lot of profit for a nonprofit. They often have policies that discriminate against people who are LGBTQ or have a disability. As a matter of policies, they sometimes don't treat people who are one of those sectors of the population. And so we need to make sure that people have access to healthcare if you're disabled, people have access to schooling if you're disabled, and right now that is simply not the case in Pennsylvania. And it is our state government's fault. It is a matter of state priorities that takes that away from people with disabilities.
All right, okay, we're staying with you. Kind of piggybacking on the former question, this is a little bit more about energy, and natural gas specifically, which is a big deal in southwestern Pennsylvania in a number of ways. Do you envision a way to leverage natural gas development in Pennsylvania in a manner that brings about a renewable energy economy that many believe is our nature's future? And if so, how do we proceed, and what's the state's role in helping us think about that?
Yeah, so the second biggest reason that our electric bills are skyrocketing right now, besides data centers, is the fact that our state has exclusively focused on natural gas, methane, for decades and decades, to the exclusion of any other type of energy source. We are 49th in the nation in renewable energy growth in the last 10 years, lagging behind only Alaska. And the reason for that is that our alternative energy portfolio standards have not been updated since 2008. It has been 20 years. We used to be on the cutting edge, actually, of alternative energy standards in the mid-aughts. And 20 years later, guess what? Technology has advanced, the world has advanced, and now we are way behind. We're, like I said, 49th in the nation in growth in renewable energy. And the reason for this, the reason our electric bills are skyrocketing, we only have natural gas, right? We have given billions of dollars to that industry to build pipelines out of the states into that natural gas. So our bills used to be low because that gas was stranded in Pennsylvania, but that pipeline wasn't built, and so it was cheap. Now it's being exported not just to the United States, but the rest of the world. And so now we're at the mercy of this global natural gas economy, and we have nothing to fall back on. We have no solar, we have no alternatives, we have literally nothing except natural gas, and that's a big reason why it's skyrocketing. We're also 49th in energy efficiency improvements. Simply to say, for decades, our state leaders have neglected our energy policy because it was the good times, right? Natural gas was cheap, it was great, why would we think ahead? Well, now we're paying for it. We desperately need to update our alternative energy standards. Governor Shapiro introduced the Lightning Plan 2 years ago. Most of these things were introduced, for example, updating energy standards. 2 years later, the state legislature has done nothing. I greatly support Governor Shapiro. He introduces a lot of great plans. Nothing ever happens with those plans. The plan is on paper, is worth squat, unless somebody actually implements it. And it's time to enter the 21st century as a Pennsylvania energy, or we're going to keep paying for it.
Same question, you said 5.
Yeah, so there's no question that we're depending on gas, and even as we go forward with the data centers, gas is the prime ingredient here. That's not to say we're not chasing and trying to develop hydrogen and some other methods. Only solar and wind and that sort of thing can only go so far to these things. It's a big grid that needs to get filled when you're talking about the data centers that produce the jobs that were referred to. There's jobs inside, but there's a lot of jobs outside that are prevailing wage and union jobs to build these things. But we are pursuing it. I mean, it's part of the question when I talk about that bill that was introduced. Part of the the vagueness of the bill is that there has to be some plan to keep chasing or trying to develop nitrogen as an alternative to gas. We all know that that's an issue, and we all know that we have to do something about it. It's been talked about for a while. We've tried solar, we've tried wind. There's pieces, but we need to do more. There's no question, and it's not like we're not trying to do that, and we won't pursue it because we will.
Okay, thank you, Bill. The next question will be about governance, and it is this. And Senator Fontana will begin. While there have been some positive legislative actions recently, partisan gridlock in Harrisburg has taken its toll, and many people feel that Pennsylvania state government is dysfunctional. What types of reforms, if any, would you support to make the legislative process in Harrisburg more effective?
I started to address this earlier, but I ran out of time. But one of the things when I first got into, when I was on county council for 5.5 years, the rule there was you had to debate, discuss every piece of legislation that was introduced. So in other words, there had to be a vote up or down and take it out of committee if need be, or it gets voted down. I went into the Senate and I introduced that same type of bill. That's a long time ago. And of course, keep reintroducing every 2 years. You have to reintroduce because everything expires. But that's what should happen. Any bill that's introduced should have the opportunity to be heard, whether it's discussed or debated just in committee, and to put a vote up. I'm there to vote. I'm there to put a vote up. The folks in the 42nd district sent me there to put that vote up, whether it's going to agree or disagree. I'm to do that. So that's what should change. Now that legislation just sat, and again, the gridlock is part of that. And if everyone could communicate that way, every bill could be discussed, then it would be no question the gridlock would have to go away. Because as I mentioned before, some of these bills, if they would actually run the bill, we'd get Republicans to vote for it. But they won't do it. They're protecting someone else that's running for office at the time, that kind of thing. There's too much gerrymandering, there's too much partisanship, and the only way you do it is to communicate. Every single bill should be heard.
Thank you. I'll read the question. While there have been some positive legislative actions recently, partisan gridlock in Harrisburg has taken its toll, and many people feel that Pennsylvania state government is dysfunctional. What types of reforms, if any, would you support to make the legislative process in Harrisburg more effective?
Yeah, Harrisburg is dysfunctional. Actually, a big reason that I decided to run was the half-year-long state government shutdown last year. At the end of which, both parties were patting themselves in the back. Oh, we had this great budget. It took us 5 extra months, but we had this great budget. It still didn't have the most funding for our most basic priorities. They simply can't do it. They cannot pass a budget on time. It hasn't happened in any year in the past 4 years. I think cumulatively they've taken a year off work in the last 4 just because their state government shut down. They still get paid. They still cash that check. And it's fine for them. But our communities suffer, right? Our health plans go without money. Our schools go without money. Community colleges. Our communities suffer without that money that they desperately need. And, we spend 200 people across the state Senate and the state House to Harrisburg, and they simply can't get it done. The senator mentioned a bill that he's been reintroducing since 2005. Introducing the same bill over and over, it really doesn't really help anyone. So there are plenty of things that we can talk about. For example, withholding pay from legislators during a government shutdown. Maybe that'll incentivize somebody to get something to happen. But the only way that we're going to make any change in Harrisburg and shake it up is the people who are there right now who can't seem to get a budget passed, vote them out. That's first and foremost. Vote them out. Get somebody new. Get somebody who's going to bring energy, who's actually going to try to deliver policy and financial priorities for the community on time for the first time in half a decade. And to quickly close the loop on the last question related to energy, that's one thing that we can't blame partisan gridlock for, the fact that we don't have any alternative energy. Because in deep red Texas, which is the only state that mines more natural gas than Pennsylvania, their alternative energy has actually grown from 12 to 34%, in the same time that ours has grown by 1%. This is not exactly a bastion of kumbaya liberalism, this is deep red Texas. So, partisan gridlock, I'm sick of that excuse.
Okay, want to pivot to talking about childhood poverty. In Pennsylvania, the number of children living in poverty has been on the rise in recent years, and it's estimated that over 500,000 children are living in poverty across the state, and therefore more likely to have physical and mental health problems, difficulties in learning. There's a lot of impacts to that. And this has been talked about at the state level. What would you propose to alleviate poverty in PA, and what efforts should be made to address children's needs?
Yeah, I actually already mentioned something that the state is doing to actively undermine children living in poverty, purposefully ignoring children living in poverty, purposely undercounting the children living in poverty in order to save a buck on the bill that they owe to our public schools. Again, this was a few years ago. They intentionally and maliciously tampered with that data, literally, pretty much out in the open, explicitly, so that they could lower the bill. So first and foremost, I would count it correctly. I would go back to the original data source. I would actually give a care about the children living in poverty instead of intentionally turning your blind eye towards them so that you could save a gosh darn dollar and get your bill supposedly balanced 6 months late. There's so many things that our state needs to do to help children living in poverty. First and foremost, obviously, educating them correctly, giving them a chance to get out of the situation that they're in. Healthcare, again, like I said, fighting back against the monopolization so that they can actually have access to care, so that they can be healthy, and again, have a gosh darn chance. Giving them access to transit, letting them get somewhere, letting them get to school, letting them get to a job application if they're in their teens, letting them get to the grocery store, funding public transit. They need it. You name it, the state is dropping the ball across the board on children specifically living in poverty, and pretty much anyone. Raising them a wage, we already talked about. Why are we giving away these poverty level wages when the rest of the world has already figured out that that's no way to foster a true, healthy democracy? It's a sick joke across the board. I'm sick of it, and that's why I'm running.
So in Pittsburgh here, there's the Homeless Children's organization. It was amazing when I first was introduced to it by a fellow named Joe Lagana, who showed how many children are actually not only in poverty, but living on the street. They just go from one place to another. They sleep in cars. It's absolutely amazing. I actually got in with Senator Berlockovich, who's a Republican. We got together to actually do a study about that issue, and so it branched out into a lot of different things when it came to children and homelessness and poverty, and getting through. It was even a battle. It was bipartisan to get that study there, but it comes down to money. It's trying to fund these programs to help the children get off the street and get into the schools, but into some things as simple as getting healthcare, clothes, food, all those kinds of things that these young people are missing. So we had a focus on it. We still do, but there's not enough money going into that particular priority. It is a priority again in our caucus, but it's just something that is ongoing. We just have to keep at it and keep working at it.
Okay, the next question is about voting. What changes, and we begin with you, Senator Fontana, what changes would you support making to Pennsylvania's voting laws to expand access, ensure security, and support local election officials and processes.
We go back a ways. I was probably the first one, I was the first one that supported mail-in ballots. Now, all of a sudden, it's more of a popular thing to do. But I had legislation, tell you about Oregon and some of the other states, Utah, which is a Republican state, that did it. And the reason for it was to expand voters, the ability to vote. And mail-in did that. There's no question that it does, even though on the other side of the aisle, they go back and forth whether it's good or bad. We have to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to vote. And make it as easy as possible to do that. I'm glad to see some of the organizations here, signing folks up and actually, the one lady said, providing rides and things like that to make sure that people can vote. We are fighting suppression at this point, coming down from the federal level all the way down through the state level to suppress the vote. And it's a shame, and it's something we keep fighting for. Again, it's something we know it's being done, we know there's a strategy to do it, and it's up to us to voice our concern, voice our pushback. We have to keep doing that, and we do. Right? Everyone should have the ability to vote if they want to, and they can. And all this stuff about licenses and showing this and showing that, and it's just another way of suppression. So we fight against that. That's something we have to do, and continue to do that.
Mr. Stankiewicz, the same question. What changes would you support making to Pennsylvania's voting laws to expand access, ensure security, and support local election officials and processes?
Yeah, absolutely. Pennsylvania really has to modernize its voting laws to, like you say, expand access and make it easier on our counties to count the ballots. First and foremost, expanding access includes same-day voter registration, right? Expanding in-person early voting options so that working people can cast their ballot on their own schedule. We don't get days off for voting here in Pennsylvania, or heck, in America, like most functional democracies in the world. So working people are at a severe disadvantage. So we need to expand early voting. Heck, if Pennsylvania can give people a day off, and so that we can actually increase voting turnout, that would be fantastic. We also need to, for example, allow the counting of mail-in ballots, at least the processing of these mail-in ballots, to begin before Election Day. The actual count has to happen on Election Day, but the processing, the opening, the putting them into the system can begin. A big reason that things happen so late and there's so much work and things get disjointed on Election Day is because we're one of the only states that doesn't allow this. And finally, we do have to fight back against federal attempts to take away our right to vote, plain and simple. The president recently signed an executive order imposing onerous burdens on mail-in voting. And Governor Shapiro showed a lot of leadership in fighting back against that and suing to stop that executive order from taking place. We need legislative leaders who will have the energy and the backbone to join that fight and to help the governor in defending our right to vote here in Pennsylvania.
Okay, thank you very much. So it's now time for closing statements. We'd like to allow both of you 60 seconds to make a closing statement. And you may proceed to the minute that you see fit. Because Mr. Stankiewicz spoke last, Senator Fontana, you will speak first.
My first?
Your closing statement, yes.
Thank you. I just want to thank the League of Women for having this forum. I think it's very important to hear everyone's views. Certainly, in my case, explore my record. Can't hide that. That's there for all to see, and I hope everyone does take a look at it over the years. I'm running again, not because I need a job or want a job. It's because I still have the desire to get some things done that need to get done. We're pushing forward here in the city of Pittsburgh. I was really enthusiastic about the new mayor being elected. I think we're moving in the right direction for a lot of things going forward, and I'll continue to have that fire in my belly to keep fighting for what I think is best for the residents of the 42nd District. Thank you.
We desperately need new state leadership who will work for working families instead of the lobbyists and campaign donors in Harrisburg. We need a leader who will fight to make housing more affordable instead of preserving the monopoly of giant out-of-state corporations. We need a leader who will fight to lower utility bills, instead of giving data centers hundreds of millions of taxpayer handouts and private utilities the right to arbitrarily raise rates and pocket the money as pure profits. A leader who will fight to fund our public schools, instead of giving hundreds of millions of corporate tax credits for discriminatory private schools. We need a leader who will fight to make our air and waterways cleaner, instead of voting for environmental loopholes as a favor to the oil and gas lobby. A leader who will strengthen collective bargaining rights by prohibiting corporations from stripping healthcare coverage during a work stoppage. It's time for a new chapter in Western Pennsylvania, one that works for us and not for them.
Thank you both so much. Please join me in thanking thank you guys so much for being here. We've got a couple more announcements. I'd like to welcome Tim Stevens up to make some brief remarks. Thank you guys. Because I know we'll have to re-encourage him to come up here. He's in here on his own time. Got it? Yeah. All right, we'll hear from Mr. Stevens briefly, and then a couple final announcements about our upcoming events, and we'll get you out of here.
How about a hand for our candidates and our facilitators? I put this up before I came here tonight from a BPEP perspective, and I would imagine all of our partners would be in agreement. The Black Political Empowerment Project, BPEP, as we celebrate our 41st year of service, May 21st, to the Pittsburgh region, 41 years. We're proud to continue our advocacy for African Americans that we vote in each and every election. Our power as a people lies in our continuity, consistency, and commitment. The future of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and the nation is not in the hands of the politicians, but in the hands of you, the people. Every day, come on now, you the people. Every day across this nation, we witness the impact of those in political power to affect our daily lives. On Tuesday, May 19th, 2026, you have the power throughout the Pittsburgh region to help nominate the candidate of your party for the Pennsylvania governor, Pennsylvania lieutenant governor, U.S. representatives in the Congress of the United States, Pennsylvania state senators in even-numbered districts, numerous Pennsylvania state representatives, committee people in all election districts, Democratic state committee persons in senatorial districts 37, 38, 42, 43, and 45. Republican committee men and women, Republican state committee persons by senatorial district, and Republican state committee persons at large. The impact of politics is at a level many of us have never seen before. Can you agree with that? When you don't vote, you disempower yourselves, you disempower your families, you disempower your community. Vote on Tuesday, May 19th, and have a lifetime commitment to vote in each and every election. And those of you who want to assist with our roll to the polls, free transportation, call us at 412-212-8775. That's 412-212-8775, or with our historic election protection that our chair, civic engagement leader, Lorraine Cross, has led for many years. Thank you so much. Give it back.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. All right, just some final calls to actions, acknowledgments, and we'll get everybody out of here. Once again, the registration date for the primary is May 4th. Somebody say May 4th. May 4th! The primary itself is May 19th, so please make sure that you vote via the ballot ways to submit.